they say the entire universe is contained within your heart. And so when you wear like the ruby for the sun, you're not actually connected to the sun outside, because that's just a physical representation of what's actually inside you. You're actually boosting the karma that's already inside you. Vedic astrology and the gemstone, they're all just symbols that link to a much deeper level into the actual karma layer next to your soul.
Namaste. You're listening to the Savannah Podcast. Join us on an exploration of Eastern spirituality, yoga philosophy, and conscious living for the new age. This podcast is a production of SavannahSpirit.com, the best place to shop for unique clothing, spiritual handcrafted jewelry, healing gemstones, and fair trade gifts from the Far East. Now, here's your host, Brett Larkin.
Hello, Savannah family. Welcome back. Today, we are diving into the philosophy of karma. I've wanted to do an episode on karma forever. And today we're going to talk about this with Ken. He is a Vedic astrologer. He has a really deep understanding of Vedic astrology and where it comes from and how to apply it in a way that's relevant and helpful in the modern world. So today we're going to be talking about how karma is created and released according to the Vedas. He's also going to tell us about other remedial measures we can take to change our karma. And as I mentioned, diving in a lot into how gemstones are related with Vedic astrology, and I promise you, you're never going to think about jewelry the same way again. Do not miss this episode. So before we dive in, I just wanted to remind you, leave a rating or review for the show if you haven't already. It only takes a second, and I'm still doing this, so if you haven't done it, there's still time. Leave a rating or review. Snap a pic with your phone when you do. Just take a screenshot, or if you're on a desktop, just snap a pic, and then email your review to info@brettlarkin.com, and me and my team will respond with a really beautiful PDF booklet that I put together just for you that has my favorite journaling prompts and affirmations. It's just a little thank you gift from my heart to yours for taking the time to leave a review because it's a busy world. So let's dive in now to continue our conversation with Ken. Hey, Ken, welcome back to the show. I'm so glad you're back with us.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks for having me again.
So everyone, if you missed Tuesday's episode, Ken gave a really amazing overview for us about the difference between Vedic astrology and Western astrology. And I've already learned so much. We also talked about these nakshatras, which I'm sure will come up again today. I won't butcher, but I think the most important thing to know is that they're not in Western astrology, and they help us really go deeper and use Vedic astrology as an aligning tool and also as a tool to connect with different deities and archetypes that exist within the Indian tradition. So can you talk a little bit about the philosophy behind this? Because I feel like you almost use the words Vedic astrology and Jyotish like interchangeably. And why is that? Like, what is this term all about?
Exactly. So Jyotish and Vedic astrology are exactly interchangeable. Jyotish is just the Sanskrit term for Vedic astrology, and it means light. It can be used to illuminate the karma you've brought into this life.
And on Tuesday, you had talked to us a lot about how, in your first experience, when you had your chart read, your Vedic chart read, which is similar to a birth chart if you're just tuning in now, that you were just astonished at what the reader could tell you about your life, and like everything they were telling you about your past really lined up. So I'm curious, could that person predict your future as well? And can you predict the future of people who you do readings on?
Yes. What you see in the birth chart is it's actually your past, present, and future. You can see everything that's happened in your life. This is because your birth chart is actually a map of all the karma you've brought into this life.
Okay, well, I'm really glad you used that word karma because it's a word that gets thrown around so much. Like, I feel like I see it on t-shirts. I know I have it on a hat. Like, it just gets tossed around a lot in the yoga world, right? This idea of karma. So I'm curious to hear from you, what's the philosophy and the true meaning behind this word, at least according to the Vedas?
So karma basically says that your intent and action influence your future. However, there's a lot more to karma than just a simple definition. To fully grasp the philosophy of karma, you have to understand how karma is created and released. So if you let me, Brett, please let me go into this a little bit and help you understand the philosophy behind Jyotish. The process of karma creation is called ashrava in Sanskrit. For example, let's say sometime in the past you had an intense desire to get something, and when you didn't get it, you were frustrated and angry. Everyone's probably had this experience.
I know, I'm like waving my hand over here. I'm like, yep, that.
That's me as well, don't worry, Brett. Because you weren't detached when you were chasing after your desire, the anger and frustration creates a karmic impression in your subtle body. If you imagine a still lake, something has disturbed the stillness and now you can see ripples on the surface. These ripples, which were caused by past desires, are your karmic impressions, and this stays with you until it's time for the karma to be released. So the process of karma being released is called nirjara. The karma arising will cause your subtle body to vibrate or ripple at a similar frequency, and this in turn causes a similar event to materialize in your life. Sticking with the earlier example, you will experience an event in your life that will make you feel angry or frustrated. Let's say you were minding your own business and someone came up and insulted you, causing you to feel angry. And again, Brett, I'm sure everyone's experienced something similar. According to the law of karma, the person insulting you is just an actor on a stage. He did not cause you to be angry. Your karma arising was the true cause. But here's the catch. When that angry event materializes in your life, if you react to it with anger again, it's like you haven't learned your lesson and more karma is created, again binding you to another similar event in the future. And this cycle will continue until we break out of it. So your astrology chart shows you all the karma that is about to be released in this life, and that's how we can show you your future.
Ooh, this is very cool. So I don't think I've ever heard karma described exactly this way, because you're talking about it almost like it's like an energetic DNA strand is how I'm like visualizing it inside of you. Yeah, and it's just going to keep playing out, or the energy or the vibration of that within me is going to cause things in my life to match that energetic vibration, correct? Until I choose a different response or action in that situation. So if it's someone, insulting me, let's say, if I insult them again, it just like reproduces more of that DNA or energetic frequency. But if I choose to do something different, right? Perhaps I walk away or I smile or I don't let it get to me. It's like, is it like that energy is just released, or does it alchemize or transmute in some way into something else?
It just disappears. And so I guess the goal of our life is to remove all the karma that we've brought into this life so we can move on. It's like we have to learn all these lessons in our life and so we can move on and move forward in our journey. This process of karma creation and release keeps us from discovering who we really are and from becoming self-realized. Because deep down inside, we are all spirit souls and our original state is pure bliss. Karma is this next level up from our souls, and that's the thing that binds our souls into action and causes us to forget who we really are.
So some people have karma that they're born with, right?
That's right.
For example, like in the Vedas, it's about past lives, right? It's like saying that you have perhaps a past life and you come into the world born with this karma, correct? And then in addition, can I like get extra karma in this lifetime that's sort of like self-generated, or is it all sort of like pre-given? Do you understand the question?
No, I totally understand. It's always a mix. So you have some karma you've brought in, and then there are a lot of things that you create in this life. And even karma that you just replace and you don't really get rid of. Sticking with the early example, if you react with anger again, then you've basically created more anger. Or if you do something really generous in this life, you've created nice karma that will come back to you later in this life or in your future lives.
I love this concept, and one of my favorite teachers, and I teach this in my teacher trainings and things as well, is this idea that you can basically move through your karma as gracefully and efficiently or as painfully as possible, right? So you can kind of be like hitting your head against the wall or like continuing to respond in the same way, or you can begin to kind of cut through your karma with grace and make some changes. But I think what's the first step to making a change is awareness, right? Ken, do you agree? Like you have to be aware that you have a habitual pattern or energetic reaction to a certain situation. Or, I mean, what advice do you have for listeners for releasing their karma, basically?
Totally agree with you. And I think one of the first things, if you go back to the Vedic tradition, one of the original goals of Jyotish is to reveal all your karma to you. So everything is clear in front of you. Vedic astrology basically helps us learn what we need to learn because it reveals everything. And that creates awareness just by that revelation.
So if I do a reading with you, are you able to pinpoint or tell me specifically, like you have an anger issue or you have a victim mentality issue, and at this point you're going to finally get over it and right now you're in the thick of it, like that kind of detail?
Exactly. So one of the things Vedic astrology can tell you is your patterning and how your mind works, and how everything in your life works. So definitely can tell you if you have an anger problem or a victim issue, and it also has this method of using timing, so you're exactly correct. If it can show you that right now that karma is dominant and is being released in this current period of your life, and that's what you have to be most aware of during this period.
And I think one of the other things I know we wanted to talk about today was just, when we talk about astrology, does it mean that everything in your life is set, like you don't have any control? But I'm guessing it ties into this idea of karma, because it's like what I said previously. It's like you can move through or release your karma very efficiently, or you can go as slow as possible. So is that kind of what you were also going to get at there?
Yes, exactly. So going back to your point of moving through your karma efficiently, even if you don't taking a step back, the Jyotish tradition has a set of tangible practices that enable an individual, if he or she chooses, to change their karma and improve their life. These are the remedial measures of Vedic astrology. They boost positive qualities in your life and minimize negative qualities. They help us tune into a more beneficial vibration, so when it's time for our karma to rise, we experience it in a healthier way. There are many kinds of remedial measures, and part of my job as a Vedic astrologer is to find the remedial measure that works best for the client's particular desire. So what happens is usually a client will tell me what they want to improve in it. Tell me that they want to improve a certain area of their life, for example, their career. I will then look at their chart and find the most effective remedial measure to help them achieve their goals. So in this way, people can take charge of their lives and change their own karma.
So what's an example of a remedial measure? Like you'd tell them to do XYZ if they're feeling angry, or do XYZ to change their career. Can you go into that more?
Yeah, so I'll give an example of a remedial measure. A really popular remedial measure is wearing the correct gemstone. And I know you touched on gemstones earlier in the podcast. The way gemstones work is it boosts the vibration or karma that is represented by the planet in your chart. Each gemstone is linked to a particular planet in your chart. Gemstones are tailored to each individual by the astrologer, so you can't just wear any gemstone. It is the astrologer's job to look at your chart and find the correct gemstone for you so that you can have a better experience in the desired part of your life. I also find a good time astrologically for you to first wear your gemstone and also guide you through the little ceremony you have to do to activate the gemstone. Gemstones can work really fast and effectively if prescribed correctly. For example, I have a client who told me the day after wearing a gemstone I recommended, her boss came to her and told her they would be changing her job to a new senior role, something she had been asking for months. One issue, however, on this remedial measure is it can boost both positive and negative qualities represented by the planet without discrimination. So not everyone can wear every gemstone because we don't want to boost the planet with predominantly negative qualities.
So is this why it's so important to have you help pick out the gemstone, right? So because if I picked the wrong gemstone, it could not only not be helping me release karma, but it could actually be like helping me accrue more karma. Yes?
Yeah, exactly. So I had this client that was wearing a blue sapphire, and one of the problems she was telling me was she felt really depressed all the time. And I looked at her chart, and the blue sapphire is connected to Saturn, and that was the planet that was causing her depression. So I said, just remove the blue sapphire, and she felt better almost immediately. The next day she called me and she said that was great advice.
This is so cool what you're sharing, because I think a lot of people in my community, in the Savannah community, and in the yoga community, we have this idea or this concept that, gemstones and crystals are really important and that they have energetic healing effects, and that, certain ones do certain things, right? Like rose quartz is associated with the heart chakra, for example, right? But what you're saying and sharing is so much deeper, right? Because you're saying that actually if you have or wear the correct gemstone, it can affect your internal karma DNA that we were talking about before, and help sort of shift it so that the next time you're playing out your karma, you can respond in a more positive fashion. Is it a stretch for me to say that, or am I kind of on the right track?
No, you're exactly on the right track, Brett. And that's exactly what gemstone does. They're all linked to individual planets that symbolize your karma. So when you wear one, you're boosting that specific karma in your life.
So I'm going to ask a really nerdy question, so I hope you're going to bear with me, because I think this is so cool and fascinating. So when you talk about a planet and then a crystal being associated with that planet, how is that connection made? Is it just passed down through the Vedas? Like the Vedas say that, Jasper goes with Pluto or something? Or is it more subtle than that, where it's like this the energy frequency of this planet matches the energy frequency of this stone? I'm sorry, this is such a nerdy question, but I'm really curious.
I guess the answer is we don't really know because it wasn't really explained in any of the texts. I think the text actually basically just says that, for example, the sun, the ruby is connected with the sun, and that's the gemstone for the sun. But going deeper, actually, they say the entire universe is contained within your heart. And so when you wear like the ruby for the sun, you're not actually connected to the sun outside, because that's just a physical representation of what's actually inside you. You're actually boosting the karma that's already inside you. Vedic astrology and the gemstone, they're all just symbols that link to a much deeper level into the actual karma layer next to your soul.
Interesting. And I like that too, because we haven't talked about in this episode, but obviously you know about Brahman, that term, right? Like the universal conscious intelligence. It's like we are the Atman, the drop of Brahman, right? And so it makes sense that like the whole universe would be within us, including, like I'm visualizing it as a, mini version of the stars and the astrology system and like everything. I'm curious, Ken, just touching on yoga before we let you go, like what does your yoga and meditation practice look like? I never like people to escape the show without telling me about kind of their practice or their morning routine or like tips they want to share with listeners, because I think people are really interested to know what folks like you, like what do you do for a self-care practice?
It's probably similar to what you do and what many of the listeners do. I wake up, I do some yoga, and then I do a mantra meditation. And the specific mantra that I do is based on my own Vedic astrology chart, because you can tell. Your Vedic astrology chart can tell you the specific mantra you're supposed to do.
Stop. This is too cool. So wait, do you chant it or do you say it internally?
It's a mix. So sometimes I chant it out loud and sometimes I say it internally.
So one of the things I talk about in my teacher training and with my students is that your own voice is healing for you. Like the vibration of your voice is healing for your unique body constitution and your unique energetic field. So I'm curious, when you talk about assigning or giving someone a mantra based on their birth chart, does that tie into this idea that we were talking about with the stones as well, where, chanting the correct language can help clear some blockages or release karma for you?
Yes. So there are so many mantras, right? And some of them I sort of classify in my head as spiritual mantras. They are the ones that can guide you home and where you need to go. Within Vedic astrology, if there's a certain part of your life that you want to change, there are also mantras that can help you with that. And that goes back to the remedial measures with the gemstones. If you want to change a specific part of your life and you're not able to use gemstones because they're in a negative place in your chart, one of the ways to change that part of your life is mantra meditation. So over time, as you keep saying this mantra, that mantra carries the perfect vibration represented by that particular planet. So, and over time, the way it works is as you say that mantra, the subtle vibration of the mantra creates harmony with your own internal vibration and brings you better experiences. For example, if you have a person with anger problems and they have a weak or afflicted Mars in their chart, which is often the case because Mars is the planet that usually symbolizes your anger, they can chant the Mars mantra to reduce the intensity of their anger, helping them control it and gradually learn the lessons they need to learn in this life. And going back to the question about karma, this can help them release their karmas in a more detached way and slowly move forward and go forward in their spiritual journeys.
I love that. All right, I'm going to go back to gemstones for a second, because I just wanted to ask, because I think listeners might be listening, because who might be wondering, this came up for me, was with the gemstones, can you wear it anywhere on the body, or are certain gemstones, or if you read someone's chart, like you'd tell them maybe to have a gemstone as a ring or in their pocket or as a necklace, or is it not that detailed? Because I'm thinking about jewelry in a whole new way now, Ken.
I'm glad you're thinking about that. That's a really good question, Brad, actually. Traditionally, traditionally it says that you need to put your gemstones as a ring on your hand, and certain gemstones have to be on specific fingers.
Yes, because I know from Kundalini, there's the planetary correspondence with each of the fingers, right? So I'm assuming that could amp up or decrease the effect of the gemstone.
Exactly. So usually what I tell my clients is if they choose to wear it as a ring, I'll tell them the exact finger they're supposed to wear it on. But the way I've used it, and many clients, because maybe if they're a guy, they're uncomfortable wearing it as a ring, they can wear it as a necklace, as a bracelet. It all sort of works from my experience. What's more important is the way the gemstones are cut and the way it's set. it has to allow light to pass through from the sun into and touch your skin through the gemstone. So it cannot be blocked. Like the way some gemstones are set with a piece of gold underneath the gemstone, I don't think that helps as much as if it's open.
So interesting. And talking about rings, my other question that I wrote down for you was about diamonds as a gemstone. Or is there anything you want to share there? Just because so many of us, a lot of people, if they're married or engaged or, whatnot, it's just the most common stone that so many of us are wearing.
Yes, diamond is related to the planet Venus. Most of the time, because Venus is a very happy planet, it's related to relationships, it's very appropriate for someone to wear that as an engagement ring. But from my own practice, there are certain positions where if Venus is placed in certain positions of your chart, it's not very helpful for you to wear the diamond ring. I have an example of a client who came to me and I saw that Venus was in a very bad position in her chart. I said, "Do you wear a diamond ring?" And she said, "Yes, but I keep losing it." And through her life, she lost her diamond ring 2 or 3 times, and her husband kept buying her a new one. And eventually, she just gave up. But I felt like it was as if someone was looking out for her and making sure she would lose a diamond ring so she wouldn't wear it.
Oh, that's so cool. And meanwhile, this poor fiance husband is like, "This is the third ring that I've bought."
This is the worst.
Yeah, and then that's the Saturn finger, right? That we wear the diamond on, the ring finger, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
But it's also related to a few other planets. So I think you can also wear Jupiter's gemstone on it. It really depends. It's not linked to the exact finger, the planet finger.
Got it. Cool. Well, Ken, thanks so much for coming back on the show. I feel like I've learned so much. Is there anything, like based on the context of the conversation we've had so far, that you want listeners to know that you haven't shared yet?
No, I think we've covered it. If you have any more questions, please feel free to contact me through my website.
Yeah, so how can people stay in touch with you and do a reading with you if they're interested?
The best way to find out about me is my website, and that's kenreadsjyotish.com. And you put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, I was going to say Jyotish is a little bit hard to spell, so we're going to put that down in the show notes for everyone. And then we'll put the link to the Meghan Markle astrology chart because it's really fun to look at and learn. That was mentioned in the first episode down there as well. So awesome. Ken, thank you so much for coming on the show. Listeners, make sure to let me know what you thought of today's episode. The best way to do that is through the form of a rating or review here on iTunes. It really does make a difference, and it helps get the show in front of more people who are looking to transform their life through yoga and meditation. I'm sending you so much love. I can't wait to connect with you next week. From my heart to yours, namaste.
You've been listening to the Savannah Podcast. To find out more about Savannah, go to savannahspirit.com or follow Savannah on Facebook at facebook.com/Savannah Spirit. For daily inspiration, check out our blog at savannaeast.com. Be sure to join us next week for a new episode, and thank you for listening to the Savannah Podcast.